Later, Jay feels the fever when he welcomes 70s icon John Travolta, star of the new movie Face Off, plus Emily Young. Stay up for Jay. Your local news is next.
You're watching NBC4, the Tri-State News Channel. And now, Chuck Scarborough, Sue Simmons, Janice Huff, and Len Berman. This is News Channel 4 at 11.
Allahu Akbar.
Hundreds gather for traditional Islamic prayers. It was the final farewell for Dr. Betty Shabazz, who is now buried with her assassinated husband, Malcolm X. Good evening. Prominent figures and ordinary folks gathered today for the services for Dr. Shabazz.
And then the solemn procession to a Westchester cemetery for a private burial at the family plot. Michael Hill has a report.
A copper casket carried the body of Dr. Betty Shabazz into the Islamic Cultural Center, an Upper East Side mosque. The 6 Shabazz daughters were among the women covering their heads and mourners removing their shoes. The imam reminded all death is inevitable.
Death represents the time of relief for the sincere and righteous Muslim. That's why the Muslim, or the sincere Muslim, love to die.
It was a traditional Islamic service for Dr. Shabazz, who died Monday from burns in a fire her grandson allegedly set June 1st. He did not attend the funeral, but the mayor did and said the city shares the loss.
We also shared the tremendous benefits of her great life.
Other dignitaries included Muhammad Ali, Congressman Charles Rangel, actress Cicely Tyson, and former Mayor David Dinkins.
You know, all people. This is an example of how one can meet adversity and rise above it and transcend all the problems, which is what she did.
Dr. Shabazz, widower, mother, educator, was a nurse by profession, but spent life after Malcolm X treating social ills. Hundreds lined the streets to pay their respects.
It's really hard to put into words. It was such a terrible tragedy, and she was loved and respected by so many people.
I just feel sad that something like this had to happen to her.
She thought that we should live each moment with some dignity and purpose. She lived it. She didn't just talk it.
As her casket left the mosque for Ferncliff Cemetery in Hartsdale for burial next to Malcolm X's, Muslims said death is not a sad occasion because the hereafter begins now. One friend mentioned the void Dr. Shabazz has left.
There's a good one gone, another giant down, and we hope those shoes can be filled. It's going to be unlikely, but that was a woman. Whence comes there such another? Good woman, good woman.
Michael Hill, News Channel 4.
There will be a public memorial service for Dr. Shabazz at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon at Riverside Church in Manhattan. And if you cannot attend in person, you can watch that service Sunday night on NBC4.
In what could lead to a pivotal ruling on affirmative action, the Supreme Court has agreed to decide a New Jersey case on racial hirings. The dispute centers on a 1989 decision by the Piscataway School Board to fire a white teacher instead of an equally qualified black teacher. The Clinton administration had asked the justices to stay out of it. In other Supreme Court action today, the justices shot down part of the Brady gun control law, ruling it unconstitutional. In a 5-4 decision, the court ruled the federal government cannot make local police conduct background checks on potential gun buyers. But the justices let stand a 5-day mandatory waiting period to buy handguns. While the National Rifle Association calls the ruling a victory, gun control advocates vow to fight on.
We're going to work like the devil for it. When we started out, it took us 7 years to get our original. We don't give up easily.
New York and New Jersey are among 27 states exempt from the Brady law. They already have systems in place that instantly check a handgun buyer's background.
Despite city reports showing a dramatic decline in crime, New York police are out in force tonight. Extra officers patrolling targeted neighborhoods. It's a response to last weekend's rash of murders in the city. Brian Thompson's live now at 138th Street and Broadway, one of the extra enforced areas, with the latest for us. Brian?
No question about it, a show of force by police after what just a few years ago would have been a fairly typical crime weekend here in New York City. What used to be, however, is not good enough anymore, and this police memo with a tactical plan of action is proof of that. They say they weren't even drinking it, just taking it home. But a couple of open beer bottles in Washington Heights got 2 men in trouble tonight, probable fines they'll have to pay in court. Nobody here thought it was really fair, but at the same time, they couldn't really argue with the quality of life crackdown.
I like what they're doing.
You like what the cops are doing overall?
Yep, I do.
Even the quality of life crackdown?
Uh-huh.
Even though it's not fair to your friends?
Right.
But you still say the cops are doing the right thing?
I think so.
All over the city this weekend, police have been told to step it up. It follows 6 murders last weekend that surprised this city, even while murders are way down from last year's relatively low number.
Well, they'll be all over the city. We're not going to reveal exactly where they're going to be. You will see them.
The quality of life crackdown is only part of the campaign that includes DWI checkpoints and other activities in traditional high-crime areas. In Harlem's Community Board 9, where playgrounds have been upgraded in recent years, this weekend's crackdown is welcome news.
Any action to deter or stop or halt or just remind people that this is not the way we're going to live and the way we're going to behave is important.
Now, last weekend, 6 murders was the highest such total in more than a year, but still the killings this June are at about half the rate of June of last year, which is a huge victory for the police department in the city of New York, and there's no question that this crackdown is aimed at keeping that way, at least the overall totals. Reporting live from Harlem, Brian Thompson, News Channel 4. Back to you.
Brian, thank you. You can now call him Vinny the Clean-Shaven Chin. Responding to a judge's order, reputed mob boss Vincent Gigante left for court looking more presentable today. At Gigante's murder and racketeering trial, an FBI agent testified Gigante functions normally without feigning mental illness when he's caught off guard. A male juror has been dismissed and replaced with a female alternate. In addition to a $33 million wrongful death judgment, O.J. Simpson owes $700,000 in back taxes to the IRS. Simpson told a judge in Santa Monica today that he had no idea how his agents got possession of his Heisman Trophy. The former football star responded to Fred Goldman's statement that he'd like to take a sledgehammer and turn that Heisman Trophy into a pancake.
But obviously, I think it's probably worth a little more emotionally for my kids and their kids than it would be to a guy that would rather destroy it.
Simpson denied rumors he's moving to Florida, and he said he'd like to stay in Southern California because his kids like it there. Prosecutors in the upcoming extortion trial of Autumn Jackson have asked the judge to bar her attorneys from asking Bill Cosby whether he is her biological father. Jackson's charged with trying to extort $40 million from Cosby. The judge expected to issue a ruling next week, and the trial is set to begin July 7th.
Federal judge in California hands the alleged Unabomber a defeat. Theodore Kaczynski's lawyers had asked the judge to throw out evidence collected from Kaczynski's Montana cabin. They argued the search warrant was based on a false affidavit, but the judge denied the motion. The search turned up much of the evidence in the case, including a journal in which Kaczynski allegedly admits to the bombings. The Senate has approved $135 billion in tax cuts, the largest tax relief package in more than a decade. The bill directs most of its benefits toward families with children, college-bound students, and investors. It also raises the cigarette tax by 20 cents a pack to finance a new health care program for uninsured children. Up next, a wild scene at a Hudson pier. A cruise ship smashes into a building. We'll be back in 60 seconds.
Ole, 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 ole. Toyota! Toyota's hot, hot, hot.
The hottest party is back with hot Toyotas and hotter deals.
Toyota's hot, hot, hot.
Get into a smoking new Corolla lease and pay just $189 a month.
Hot, hot, hot.
$189 a month with some cool extras like air, radio, and more. Is it hot out here, or is it just us? You've been waiting. The hottest sales event is here at Toyota now.
The New York Times called last year's Lincoln Center Festival the most auspicious debut of the year. Newsday raved, fascinating, glitzy, fun. Now NBC4 proudly celebrates the 1997 Lincoln Center Festival. 3 exciting weeks of opera, ballet, music, theater, and more, including special performances by the Royal Ballet, Uma Batha, the Zulu Macbeth, and Le Cercle Envisable. Get your tickets now for the 1997 Lincoln Center Festival, July 8th through the 27th at Lincoln Center. Brought to you in part by NBC4.
Questions remain tonight about why a sightseeing cruise ship crashed into the Chelsea Piers complex. The accident sent hundreds of passengers reeling. News Channel 4's Andrew Glassman has the story.
The brick wall kept coming closer and closer. The ship seemed to be speeding up, not slowing down. That from some passengers who said when the steel hull of the Spirit of New York made contact with the pier, they were reminded of the action sequence in the movie Speed 2.
of a sudden people lost their balance and the ship started going faster, and people were trying to catch their balance and things just started falling over, and it was just very, very frightening.
6 feet of the bow pierced through an equestrian center under construction. Most of the 473 sightseers on board were able to walk away unharmed. At least one person was taken away on a stretcher. A total of 7 injuries are reported. The worst is said to be a broken wrist or arm.
We realized that we were going too fast, and we kind of looked at each other, my mother-in-law, and said, we're going to crash.
An explanation? The captain reportedly had engine trouble and couldn't bring the 150-foot ship into its regular slip, so he tried the next pier over. The ship was dislodged from the wall before the tide dropped and caused more damage. The Coast Guard interviewed the captain and gave him a breathalyzer test. According to a police report, the captain passed that test. Drugs and alcohol are not thought to have played a role in this accident. Still, there's the question, should the crew have radioed ahead for help before trying to come into port with engine problems? One opinion was painted right onto the bow of the ship, a nasty note from the construction workers who were putting the finishing touches on the building inside. Andrew Glassman, News Channel 4.
Spirit Cruises says this is the first incident of its kind in the 20-year history of the company.
Tonight, police in Miami say they are going to charge a father with first-degree murder for the drowning deaths of his 2 sons. Police say the man was angry with the children's mother. He told detectives he drove her truck into an alligator-infested canal, drowning the 2 boys. They were 3 and 5. Relatives say the couple had a long history of domestic violence. A 15-year-old Brooklyn mother is charged tonight in the death of her newborn daughter. The Brooklyn DA says Johannes Frazier stuffed underwear into her baby's mouth and threw the infant out of the bathroom window of her 4th-floor apartment in East Flatbush.
A former manager of the New York Blood Center is under arrest tonight, charged with tampering with test results that should screen blood tainted with HIV and hepatitis. Rosa Gonzalez is also accused of falsifying records at the center between 1993 and 96. She was the manager of the center's viral testing lab and is the highest-ranking employee to be charged so far in the federal investigation. The center insists its blood supply is safe. 5 more former inspectors from the City Department of Buildings Elevator Division have been charged for taking bribes from elevator companies, and now 16 inspectors in all have been named in the case. In exchange for money, the inspectors would allegedly let companies slide in regard to inspections and violations. The group will be arraigned next week.
And straight ahead as we continue for you, the weekend weather forecast from Janice.
Also ahead, Tiwa Chang reports from Hong Kong. Tonight, what the handover will mean for the people living there.
And it's being called Stallone Gate. Actor Sylvester Stallone's neighborhood battle next.
We asked buyers, what kind of features do you want most? 87% said, all of them. So Chevy Lumina comes with air, automatic, and room for 6. We asked, what do you want your car to cost, more or less? 99% said, less. So Chevy Lumina is only $239 a month with an initial payment of $514. We asked, what about safety? 84% said, yes, it's safe to say we want a steel safety cage and child security locks. At $239 a month, there's a great number of good reasons to lease a new Chevy Lumina.
Imagine a world without Sun Microsystems. If, suddenly, we were to go away, millions of North Americans would find themselves in darkness. Swedish school children would lose the world of the internet. The world's capital markets would go into shock.